Welcome to Business Talks with Matt Kaufler. Business Talks is brought to you in part by STCU. Now, here's Matt.
Hello, I'm Matt Kaufler, and welcome to Spokane Business Talks. My guest today is Tim Krauss. He is a local entrepreneur and founder of Velop. Tim, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about Velop, how it began, what problem you saw in the marketplace that you addressed through the creation of Velop.
Yeah, so Velop is an e-learning platform, and it's a training platform. So, 7 years ago when I started this, there was not as many platforms out there, and a lot of them were very difficult to use, column-based. A lot of people were using Moodle or school things for business-related applications.
Okay.
And so I saw an opportunity there to say, we can build something that's more simple, it's easier to use, that you can deploy and create content faster. And that was a big thing. How can we create content faster as content changes constantly?
Sure. So as I understand it, you're based here in Spokane, yet your customer base is outside of Spokane. Is that correct?
Yeah. For most of the things that I build, that's what happens. Is we just, for whatever reason, I have customers all over the country that work with me, and then some all over the world as well. But yeah, usually very few are in Spokane, which is kind of weird, but natural as well for the market size and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with Velop, was this your first entrepreneurial venture?
No, certainly not. I remember when I was a kid, and selling chocolate bars door to door, right? And that was where I realized, wow, this is kind of fun. I like engaging with customers. I like being out there. And I was one of the top sellers in the school. And so I thought, this is interesting. But I didn't really know I was entrepreneur until I was 30. I just thought that I was in and out of jobs, 1 year here, 2 years here kind of thing. I thought I had a problem because all my other friends were, 5 years, 7 years, steady. And then I realized, oh no, wait a minute, I'm the startup guy. That's what I do. That's where I thrive, is in that startup world.
That's awesome. And as I understand it, with Velop, this isn't your first time leading the company. This is actually your second time as the leader, correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's unique.
It is unique, yeah. So we were running this, and we were doing our thing and stuff, and then I had a company out of Dallas that approached us to purchase it. And so we did the transaction, they bought the whole thing, and I stayed on to help, right? To help with the transition and the software development. And then things didn't go as well as they thought it would. And so, lots of times in deals, right, there's multiple payments and payouts.
Earnouts.
Yeah. And the company wasn't able to do that. And so I just had to take the platform back legally and say, hey, I'm sorry, we got to take it back. But I'm still in contact with the person that bought it. I'm still, they're still potentially going to help me resell it or remarket it again, which is an interesting thing. So it was a difficult circumstance to go through, but we forgave each other. We got through stuff, which is not very common, I don't think.
I would agree.
And we're in really good terms, and now it's like, okay, how can we take what we have now and change it or shift it? And I've actually split it now into two sections. So one is a for-profit side and another is a non-for-profit side. So we can actually help ministries, churches, nonprofits in the community help train and develop their leaders online, as well as we can have the business side too.
That's great. So when you think of Velop, where it stands today, and where it could be in 2 to 3 years, in what ways do you think it may be different than what as we know it today?
I think how specific we are with the application. When you think about software generally, typically companies will go and they'll buy it off the shelf, right? It's already pre-made, they sell this and they stamp it, like Salesforce, right? So you get Salesforce and you get into the company, and most companies find out that they need 25, 30% more, right, than what that platform offers because it's not customized.
Right.
So I think we're going to start seeing more customization in software. 2 to 3 years from now, I think we're going to have a much more focus on the businesses. What verticals are we going after? Are we doing oil and gas? They have different training requirements, certifications that they need, right, compared to, higher education. So I think that's going to be the differentiator is we're going to get into the niches that'll propel our technology development path to be more specific.
You mentioned you split the company into profit and non-for-profit, essentially, or private non-for-profit. And you mentioned verticals. What verticals right now sort of drive the business?
Yeah, we were in healthcare, actually, behavioral healthcare, because they have a lot of needs for training and developing of their people on a constant basis. So that's definitely a vertical that I think we would want to continue into. Also in the nonprofit world, there's a lot of training that's happening. When you have staff and employees, especially volunteers, right? Some of these organizations have hundreds of volunteers. How do you train them all? You bring them into a room and it's difficult. And, they can't get there. They don't show up. They don't understand the information. So if we could do it online, I can pull out my phone on the bus or on the train or on a lunch break, and I can actually learn and engage there.
Terrific. Now, in addition to Velop, you also spend time mentoring startups in the community. I believe currently you're mentoring 2 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about those endeavors?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, startups come to me, just naturally, right? And say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? So one of them right now is a gourmet cotton candy company. Would I ever thought I would be working with cotton candy? No. But it's been a really exciting ride. We've seen incredible growth in this business. And the person that started it was a product guy, right? He doesn't really know about business. He's like, hey, I'm just doing this. I'm really good at this.
He knows cotton candy.
Yeah, he knows cotton candy, yeah. But he doesn't know the business side. So he's like, okay, I'll come in and help. And typically I do that for equity. That way the startup doesn't have to pay cash out, and then I'm in it for the long term, right?
That's great.
So I can help companies get in the long term, and then I can help with specifically crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, getting the initial concepts, your MVP done, seeing what the customers really want in the market.
You mentioned the term MVP. For the benefit of our audience, describe a little bit what the MVP is and why it's so important.
Sure. Yeah, MVP is a minimum viable product. And what that means is that it's minimum, it's viable, and it's a product. So you kind of take the three names there. Minimum, it's got to be the minimum amount. If we're trying to sell cotton candy, we need to have the product, we need to package it, and we need to sell it. That's the minimum. If we make it fun, if we put stickers on it, if we do other things, is that okay? Yeah, but does it prove that somebody will buy cotton candy?
That's
no.
the key, right?
It won't. Yeah, so it's got to be viable. Can you sell this in a public setting? And then it's got to be some type of product that you can package together. So really, what we want to discover in the MVP is we want to get the most validated learning possible for the least amount of effort. So I don't want to spend a lot of money on this. I want to do it, if we have to make a 3D print, right, of a product and test it with as many people as possible, that could be my MVP.
Okay. And when you're, in addition to the cotton candy business, what other business are you mentoring?
Yeah, I'm mentoring a kitchen product that's starting up, which is it's a cool product that this friend of mine patented. Again, he's an engineer, not a business person, and so I can help him. So we're going to getting quotes from China and other places overseas, and then we're going to crowdfund that one. Then we can prove, do the customers want it? If they pay for it, they do, and if they don't, then we'll find out real quickly.
That's great. What do you look for when you decide whether or not you want to be involved in a startup and volunteer your time? Equity aside, what characteristics are you looking for on the part of the business itself or the entrepreneur, him or herself, to help you make that decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm looking for passion, right? I'm looking for drive, how driven all these people. They don't have to be full-time doing this, that's fine. It can be their side gig, but do they have the expertise in that specific vertical or that market? Do they know friends that can get them into that market? If they have some type of connection or things. For example, the kitchen brush that I'm working with, the guy is an engineer. He can do all the drawings, all the prototyping, and it doesn't cost him much, and he knows that world, right? So in that case, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Kitchen products sell great. We just need to get it on, QVC, and they sell 1 million of them in 10 minutes. But I really look for, again, the passion side of it, and then what is the opportunity? Is there an opportunity in the market for this product? So you can do that pretty easily on the internet today, finding who else is doing this, and is this something that's unique? What is the competitive advantage here that's different from someone else? In the cotton candy case, I tasted this stuff and I thought, oh my goodness, I don't even like cotton candy.
And it was that good.
Oh man, it's incredible. And he has a trade secret on how he builds this.
So there's something proprietary
Yes,
there.
absolutely. And so we're actually going to be reinventing cotton candy, and we're going to franchise it, and it's going to be incredible. Yeah. So you think about, well, how can you make money doing cotton candy? Well, we think we can, because we're going to reinvent it, and it's going to change the way people see it and consume it.
I'm just thinking of the second order effects of this. I think a lot of dentists are going to be real happy with your success.
Yeah, well, sure.
To them with all that sugar.
Well, we use all natural cane sugars and some
That's
other stuff
right,
like that. So honestly, there's less sugar than pretty much everything else at a fair that you would buy. But again, I think the whole point is can we prove that customers will buy this?
Yes.
And we've proven that. Now, can we prove that this could be anywhere in the United States? Could the average person off the street take this and make it into a business?
Yes.
That's the next step.
That's exciting. Are there any other businesses that you have your eye on, so to speak, or is your plate pretty full right now as far as mentoring is concerned?
No, I kind of take it one at a time, so I'm even talking to a guy later today, about an opportunity. So, lots of times I can just be the broker, right? I can help and network because that's what I do. I think, who do I know that this person needs help connecting with? Whether it's in the Spokane market or whether that's outside, my mind is just wired like that. I naturally think, how can I help this person get to the next step?
So when you're not mentoring and you're not running Develop, you have the time and passion to teach at Gonzaga, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're giving back in an educational environment. You're involved in the entrepreneurship program there. Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing it for a few years now. It was something that I wanted to do, to give back to the next generation, to help them understand things quicker than I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always want your kids to go farther than you, and it's kind of the same way. Hey, don't make these mistakes, don't do these things, and do these things, and could I get more education? Could I be, I guess, more of a success in people's eyes? Well, it depends on your definition of success.
Sure.
That's a big question.
Very relative.
Yeah, but what I find relevant is going to a class like last night. I'm at the class and I'm telling the students about what I experienced 3 hours before. That to me is relevant. That to me is real
It's very
world.
powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Because hey, here's what's really happening in the marketplace as of a couple hours ago. This is what you're going to want to know. I think that's incredibly engaging in a higher education market where sometimes it's difficult to make things relevant.
Great. Well, with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Tim Krauss and what he's doing at Gonzaga and some other things that he's up to as well.
I'm Nikki Butler, and I'm a regional manager for STCU. My lunch buddy is Nicole.
I'm Brandy Schloss. I'm a regional manager at STCU. My lunch buddy is Angelina. She's grown up with me. I've grown up with her. To see her graduate will be a lot of fun.
Brandy and I have been lunch buddies since the girls were in second grade. It's great that STCU provides me with the opportunity to be part of Reach for the Future. We are committed to the children. We're committed to our community. I'm Nikki.
I'm Brandy.
And STCU is here for good.
O'Brien Logistics would like to invite you to try our local and regional transportation services. With Sprinter vans, lift gates, hot shot flatbeds, and expedited services, our people are ready to step in and help with your transportation needs. Our services are 24/7, 365, and we are trained and prepared to handle air cargo and Canadian shipments. Give us a call at 208-305-2311 or visit our website at o'brienlogistics.net. That's OBRIEN logistics.net.
Hello and welcome back to Spokane Business Talks. I'm Matt Kaufler, our host today, and Tim Krauss, our guest, is joining me, and we're going to continue our conversation with Tim. And we were talking about your involvement at Gonzaga University and the students there. You've been doing that for a few years. Mm-hmm. You've obviously met with and dealt with many, many students. When they're pitching you their ideas for businesses, what are the 1, 2, or 3 most common mistakes that you find when speaking with young entrepreneurs, whether they're students at Gonzaga or elsewhere?
Yeah, I believe that one of the biggest problems that I see is most startups don't identify the problem well enough. So, they get a pitch deck and they say, okay, this is our product, right? And we're excited about it. And this is the solution. And they talk all solution-based, right?
Yes.
But they don't identify what the real issue that they're trying to solve. Well, what is the problem that this customer really has? That's a difficult thing for many people to nail down. So if you're ever, I'm sure you see that as well, right? In pitches and things.
Absolutely. The lack of problem definition is a very common oversight. What I've found is a lot of entrepreneurs will fall in love, as you said, with the solution or their technology, and they'll forget about the problem, let alone the need to identify customers that are willing to pay for it, which gets back to earlier when we were talking about the MVP, the minimum viable product, and how important that is to test the market and get some validation.
Yeah, so in my class at Gonzaga, which I think everybody else should do if you're a startup, is I require a minimum of 100 in-person interviews.
100?
100, yeah. Before, we got to talk to people. Do they want this? Do they not? Is the problem really real? And is the solution actually viable? When you talk to 100 people, you're going to have a lot of great feedback, right, on what you're doing.
Yes, that's...
For example, when we started the cotton candy thing, I said, well, we need to survey people. So we went to an event and we surveyed people, and guess what we found? We found that the percentage of people that buy our product, right, you would think that cotton candy would be bought by what?
Children,
kids, yeah, absolutely. Nope. 80% of our customers are adults.
I never would have guessed
80%.
That's crazy.
It is crazy because you're thinking, well, why would that be, But again, it's not what I think. It's what the customer buys.
Exactly.
Right? And so through those interviews, I would encourage any startup to do at least 100 in person. Don't send out a survey monkey. That's not going to get you what you really need because you can't follow up on those questions. So you got to be in person with somebody and say, hey, do you like this? Would you buy this? Would you do these things? And then you can figure out your value hypothesis, growth hypothesis, what hypothesis is true from that experience and survey.
I've found, in addition to the lack of problem identification and so forth, that a lot of younger entrepreneurs will be very naive in terms of the costs involved in supporting their business. They'll identify a growth market. You'll see, that upward sloping line that we all love to see, the hockey stick, and they'll think about the expenses as it relates to technology. But one of I think rules of thumb that I've used is whatever your technology expenses is, expect that your marketing expense will likely be roughly 3 times as much to get your product out there and deal with defects and all that sort of thing. Have you found the same thing that from a forecasting standpoint, even if they've nailed it on the revenues, the expense structure tends to be one that isn't as well identified and accounted for?
Yeah, the old saying, double your expenses and cut your revenues in half. I think that's pretty accurate, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, every time
I've
seen it, I've seen it. So, if you're a startup, you need to take that as forecast and say, okay, well, let's, double the expenses to your marketing point, and then let's cut the revenue, at least for the first year. Because you're just starting up. You don't know what the customer fully wants yet, and so you're kind of testing and you're build, measuring, and learning. I love the lean startup methodology where we can build something, we measure how is it going, and then we learn from that.
Iterate quickly.
Yeah, and then we come back and go as fast as possible to get to that point. I think another issue that I see a lot of startups have is that they build something that they never really understood what the customer really wanted.
Yes.
And they spend so much money. I mean, think about the big companies in Silicon Valley that build these huge platforms.
Vaporware.
And nobody uses them
Yes.
because they never ask the customer, well, what do you want? You know, I've spent a lot of money in my life in software development, making things that nobody has ever used.
Yeah.
That's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
But you know what? I've learned from that, hey, I need to ask the customer first. Let's build out a little piece. Then let's ask questions, find that feedback, then build a little bit more and a little bit more. We don't have to have a perfect solution.
All up front.
Right? That concept of, it's got to be perfect to go to market. It's not true. Customers don't really need perfection. What they're looking for is honesty.
You know, I'm dating myself, but I remember back in the 80s and 90s with the database wars between Oracle and Sybase and Informix and so forth. One of the things that I learned from that as an observer, Oracle did not have the best technology, but they went on to dominate the market for the very reason that you mentioned. They brought out imperfect product.
Yep.
They learned from it. They iterated quickly. They took care of their customers passionately in the meantime.
Yep.
And they were able to essentially outflank competitors with superior technology. So I think your point's very well taken.
Yeah, you got to figure out what that customer wants quickly, right?
Right.
And then once you get the dialed in and nailed in,
Yes.
then start moving, then start pouring marketing money into it, start
Yes.
perfecting it at that point.
So just to broaden out our conversation a little bit, you've been immersed obviously in the local entrepreneurial community, from an education standpoint, a mentoring standpoint, running your own business. What's your sense, Tim, as to first of all, the economic vitality of Spokane currently, and then within that context, the entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, that's a part of that economic base?
Yeah, I think there's probably more opportunity than we think. I think that Spokane, you look at it and say, this is a small market compared to Seattle or Portland, but I think this is an incredibly perfect market to test your MVP. In fact, companies come to Spokane because of the demographics of the city.
Yes.
To actually test their products to see will they do well.
Yes.
Right. For example, one of my friends works at Lime, the scooters. He said that Spokane basically has the highest profit margin for their operations out of anywhere in the United States. Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
So I'm thinking, it's a perfect test market, right?
Sure.
It's like, okay, we can test this out. I think there's a couple reasons for that, but again, Spokane has a very diverse opportunities here. We've got healthcare, we got banking, we got other things like that, but for just a startup, we've got lots of people that want to help. That's what I see.
I couldn't agree more.
This cool area where the Matts of the world and the Tims of the world, we want to help, right?
Yes.
We're not in this to necessarily make money. We want to see the economy grow. As the economy grows, the community improves. We see schools improve. We see government improve. We see everything start to raise to a new level. Yes. So that's exciting. And I think that the opportunity for the startup is, hey, starting in Spokane is not a bad thing. Look at Stay Alfred.
Oh, what a great success story.
Look at Spiceology.
Yes.
Look at these guys that are doing things that nobody thought you could do in Spokane.
Yes.
But they're doing it. And because there's a culture here that once you get into it, there's people that really want to help.
Yes. And the beauty of it is it's going to, and it takes time, but it will compound.
Yeah.
And the success will beget more success.
Yep.
And at the same time, there will be spin-offs.
Yep,
you mentioned Stay Alfred and Spiceology. There are people in those organizations that are learning and enjoying the ride and so forth. And at some point down the road, they may decide to go do something else. Not to pick on those two organizations.
Sure.
I think it applies to any entrepreneurial organization. But the more entrepreneurship you have, the more of those derivative opportunities start to surface, and the compounding gets even greater.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's money here.
Yes.
People don't think that, but I know that. I see that. I've seen the money in Spokane, and maybe it's not your rich uncle from Microsoft in Seattle kind of money.
Yes, it's
but
different.
there is money here. If you have the right product, you have a passion for it, and you can talk to people and pitch, I think you can get money.
You know, one of the natural tensions, I think, in any community is the relationship between business and local government. In some communities, it can be outright hostile.
Yeah.
Others, it can be very collaborative. Using those as sort of the bookends, where do you see in your candidate assessment Spokane in terms of government-business relations?
I mean, I like to say it's more collaborative, but some of the things that the other side of the state is doing
Yes.
is not indicative of who we are here.
I would agree with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
people say, "Hey, let's split the state," right? And
Every
every state wants to do that.
Yes.
But I think it is more true in Washington. You know, with this minimum wage going up $1.50 in January. That's going to affect a lot of my buddies, a lot of the small businesses.
Yes.
Some of them, it's going to put them out of business straight up.
Yeah.
It's just too much. Others, you're going to be paying, $14 for a Happy Meal. I mean, that's just what's going to happen, right? So we can't
Yeah.
have both things.
It gets passed, ultimately the consumer pays for those.
Yeah, they're going to pay for it. So what I like to say that the Washington State is creating a collaborative environment. Yes, I'd like to, but I'm not necessarily sure that that's happening as much as I'd like to see it happen, honestly.
Yeah, and the other effect of that, when you start raising the cost of labor, it gives business a tremendous incentive, in my opinion, to start substituting capital for labor.
Sure.
So for all the fear of, artificial intelligence and robotics taking the place of
It's gonna
human
compound
jobs,
that, yeah.
it's going to come even faster
Yep.
the more you raise the minimum wage and make businesses incur these costs.
Yep, you're going to have people swapping technology out
Yes.
for people. So kiosks you're going to have robots doing things,
Yes.
you're going to see drones and AI start moving at a faster rate.
Yeah.
So is it all good? I don't know, we'll have to see. Yeah.
So just to bring our show to a conclusion, in terms of your background, some people know this, many others don't. I think our audience would love to hear about it. You actually appeared on Shark Tank.
Yes.
Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing experience. A friend of mine created the Bear Bowl, which is a cooking pot. He's
Yes.
from Spokane. And so I wanted to help him in his business. I had been helping him prototype and do all the things.
The
like
MVP
mentoring.
and-
all this
yeah.
stuff. And then we got to a point where we wanted to take a risk. We said, hey, let's do it. So we applied. We went to the next step. And it's easier to get into Harvard than it is to get on that show. You have 40,000 people apply, and only about 30 of them make it a year. Yeah.
Okay.
So we went through all the hoops, all the steps. We found ourselves in LA. We found ourselves in front of lights, and Corey and his wife Heidi went on the show, and as a support, I was in a bear costume, which made it very entertaining for television.
Yes.
And then we had two sharks fighting over us. And
Which
so
is-
it was just a really great experience to go down there and meet Mark Cuban and all these guys who really they're legitimate. They really do care.
I think they do
Yeah,
too.
they do.
And I think it's one of the few shows on TV, if you really listen to the questions they're asking, and I know they all do it with different flair of personality,
Sure,
shall we say,
yeah.
you can learn a lot.
Yeah.
You can really learn a lot about entrepreneurship by listening to the types of questions those guys ask.
And one of the interesting things is if we broke up our whole time, which when you're in the Shark Tank, you're typically there from 40 minutes to an hour. They only show a few minutes on TV, but you're there
didn't
for a
realize
lot
that.
longer. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're in there, and they're asking us questions, and afterwards I went through and analyzed what the questions were, and were they personal questions or business questions? 70% of all the questions they asked were personal, which is interesting to me.
Yes.
Right? Because, and I'm a believer in this, if you're an entrepreneur, I can't separate you from your startup.
Yes.
You're so intertwined with what you're doing. I can't say, well, Matt, I separate you from this thing that you're doing. I can't, because everything about your family, your background, what your personal experience is going to affect that startup
Yes.
in a significant ways. Would you agree?
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. So, it was interesting. The Sharks, 30% was just about business. 70%
Yeah.
was about the person, the individual that was going to be leading that effort. They wanted to know, are you passionate? Are you full-time? Are you going to do this? Questions like that.
It's funny you say that, because when I've watched the show, I've noticed as soon as someone gets up there, regardless of their idea, if they have, if you will, a full-time job and they're doing this venture on a part-time basis,
yeah.
they're almost eliminated right away.
Yeah.
They want to know you're all in.
Yeah, you're all in. Yeah, and sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. But yeah,
Yes.
the thing is are you all in? Are you committed to this? Because if I'm going to put money and passion behind it,
Right.
I got to make sure that you're at the same level that I'm at.
Yes. And the other thing I noticed too is you darn well better know your numbers. Getting back to what we were talking about before,
Yeah.
don't be completely in love with your technology. You want to know your numbers, and if you can show some traction, that seems to really be a hot button.
That's a really big deal. I think that's a huge point because, for example, the cotton candy business. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, as I was starting to venture with this person in this business, we got a call from Shark Tank. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I'm like, okay, round two. They didn't know I was a bear. I can go on as a principal. All right. So
Right.
he and I, we put our application together, and I said, buddy, I don't think we're a year and a half away. You got to show traction. You got to show you've made money.
Yes.
You can't go on the show and be like, yep, we sold 4. Who cares? They don't care about 4. They want to see, did the customer like it? Are they going to buy it?
Yes.
And is there a future, for that product?
Well, and I think to complement and add to what you're saying, it's not only about that, but also the time frame.
Yeah.
If people say, I sold $500,000 worth of product, and the first question a guy like
how?
Cuban will say is like, over what period of time?
Exactly.
And if they say 4 or 5 years, all their eyes roll back.
Yeah.
But if you say over the last 90 days, all of a sudden they're on the edge of their
Wait
seat.
a minute.
Yeah.
Yep. Because there's people that are willing to pay for that product.
Yes.
So, this is a good lesson to learn, right? Don't go to Shark Tank. Don't pitch in front of an investor. Don't get your excitement up too much until you've proven yourself.
Yes.
At least 6 to 9 months of sales that you can say, boy, this is how we sold, and here's the other opportunities.
Yes.
We will, I believe, go back to Shark Tank someday.
I'm
With cotton
confident
candy.
you will.
But not for a year and a half. So we got everything ready. Once we're ready and have our numbers ready to go, our next steps ready to go, then we're ready for the investment. That's the end of the question. If you got investment right now, what would you do with it? The sharks always ask that.
Yeah.
Always. And people usually don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to use it to, grow the business.
What does that mean exactly?
They don't know what that
Yeah.
means. So you got to get more specific on those answers.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you for being on our show today. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And thank you for joining us on Spokane Talks Business. Until next time, I'm Matt Kaufler.
Thanks for watching. Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Business Talks is brought to you in part by STCU. Hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.